Okay, I'm recording
Oh.
for those that can't make it.
Oops.
Paul always had some lame excuse about doing housework. I gave him shit on email. Like, come
As
on.
well you should.
And Frank said he had a client meeting, and I didn't think that was an excuse either.
That's right.
Pesky clients.
If it weren't for those employees and customers, man, you have a great business, wouldn't you?
Exactly. That's
Has
the
anybody
beauty of being
retired has anybody retired except for me?
me.
Me.
Semi. I do a little bit.
Okay.
Seems like you just read books, Rob.
I read books and I walk this one. Where is it?
See?
Oh,
Nice.
sweetie.
Oh,
Nice.
sweet.
Nice one.
Did you switch teams from cats?
No, we still have two cats. We had a mouse chasing this morning when we got up to eat at 5:30. We were chasing a mouse downstairs. So yeah,
Brilliant.
that's how I spend my days. It's wonderful.
Fantastic.
And how's Luna doing, Craig?
She's doing well. I'm getting over the scars on my wrists, and
Ooh.
she turned 12 weeks yesterday, so she goes for her final round of shots tomorrow, and we can get her a little more exercise, a little more public exposure.
Just be careful. Don't say shots in front of Dan. He thinks it means something different.
Oh yes.
So Craig, what's Luna? What is she?
Luna's a golden retriever,
Oh, I love it.
and an Irish cream golden retriever. So she's the English breed. So a little stockier and a very blonde color as opposed to the traditional red.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll see if I might be able to persuade my hound to join me. We'll see. See how it goes.
I'm guessing this will probably be the crew that we have.
I think
Did we have many people decline?
Good
I knew
crew.
Graham declined.
It was more non-response. Hey, there's Tony. How are you, Tony?
I am very well.
But now I only had a few declinations. I had some non-responses, but
I thought
me, I was
Lawrence said he was
not
going to join us, didn't he?
yeah. Oh, there you go.
Scott,
we go.
did
We
you
have a-
hear from Scott? Oh, wow. what
Little
a beauty.
Hendrix.
This is Hendrix. Yeah, he's got a few fans there. He's a Saluki Lurcher, Saluki Greyhound Cross.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
Oh,
Lovely.
He's a sweetie. Mad as a brush, and there's only 2 speeds, which is 40 miles an hour or sleeping.
Yeah.
too funny. Well, it's so
I'm sure
lovely
it's
to
just
see you
super
guys.
much.
And thank you, Craig, for spearheading this. And Dan, you always drive.
Well, actually, our counterparts over in Europe and UK kind of set an example. And I know Tony had always been sharing. Tony and I visit with one another very frequently. I talk with Frank quite a bit, and then I think I've kept fairly good touch with everybody. But Patricia, you brought it up after visiting with Vivian for lunch in London. We said, let's get it going. So what we thought we'd do is just make a quick round and tell each other what we're up to and what we've been doing. And we've only got 40 minutes on the free side of the Zoom, and then we can take it from there. But somebody want to go first?
Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Craig Waddell. Most of you probably know I retired in May of 2019 from IBM, and Elaine and I knew we wanted to move back west, but not all the way back to California for lots of reasons. So we were able to sell our house in Albany, New York, mid-pandemic, and we moved to Las Vegas, to Summerlin, Nevada, which is on the west side of the Las Vegas Valley, to A, give the desert life a try, and B, try out a 55 and older community. So we rented a house there and decided pretty early on that the desert life wasn't right for us, but we really enjoyed the 55 and older community. And what we did was we made a number of trips to the Carolinas. And long story short, as soon as we came to Myrtle Beach and saw this community, Del Webb, alongside the Atlantic Ocean, we purchased a lot last March, a year ago in March. A house came up for rent nearby, and we moved in May. And we've been here since May of last year. Our house was finished in December and we moved in. And then as Vivian was asking me about the dog, after 25 years without a dog, we decided, well, we'll get one and give it a try again. We've had golden retrievers before. And so that's the story. I've been doing mentoring, a little bit of, I won't call it deep consulting, but probably industry advising with a number of partners and folks, and just really hearing a lot from my network, my professional network, and keeping in touch. I've gotten active here in the grand sport of bocce, which is as much about drinking and social interaction as anything. And our daughter is still up in New York City, doing her astrophysics work and really enjoying that. She was just down here for 10 days, headed home day before yesterday. That's a quick summary of what's been going on. And I've really been enjoying the retired life. I love dealing with my own schedule, my own priorities. And obviously life throws certain things at you along the way, but I've been having a good time. And I've enjoyed keeping in touch with everybody as well. There's somebody said this at the beginning of the call. Everyone I talked to was a part of this team, and still is a part of this team, talks about what a great group of people it was and what a camaraderie, esprit de corps we all had. And I think this phone call here is just testament to that. So anyway, next stop.
Kind of feels a little like a virtual Alcoholics Anonymous meeting.
Yeah.
I'm Tony and
I'm not an alcoholic, but I'm not anonymous either. Tony can tell you about his and my early morning discussion about gin today.
Yeah, we're talking about maybe setting up a gin distillery in the shed. So as a little sideline, shall we say. So Craig was mentioning that he and I talk quite a lot, and I think when you went down to Arizona, you had this grand plan of working on conferences, of course, and being the chairman until the world kind of pulled the rug under that. And
yeah, COVID did that.
But
Tony, go ahead.
yeah, well, I got the floor. So after I left IBM, which I guess was probably 5 years ago, maybe 6, I really split my time 3 ways: traveling, advisory board, and writing, and managed to publish 4 books, and I've got 1 on the go at the moment, which will make the 5th.
Amazing.
Principally around AI and data and analytics. And you know, they say nobody makes money from publishing unless you marry the publisher's daughter. But I'm afraid that I'm not really in a position to do that. But kind of life is ticking on very, very nicely. A little like Craig, I was doing quite a lot of conference work, but I'm kind of feeling a little less interested by that nowadays. I'm feeling seeing the same things going round and round again. It's a little like an echo chamber, to be perfectly honest. And it does remind me of the stuff that we did 5, 7, 10 years or so ago, and the quality that we were turning out then, and also the way that we work so well as a team. So life's fine, quite happy with the world. Just come back from 3 months in Chile. We were originally going, my daughter lives there and the grandkids. We were planning to go out for about 5 weeks, and we looked on the news, and the weather was cold here in the UK, and the politics were all over the place. And we said, if you can't stay now when you have time in your hands, then when can you stay? So life's pretty good. Vivian, seeing you're immediately beneath me on my gallery. Tell me
I
about
always
yours.
feel beneath you, Tony.
Wishful thinking.
So I'm, well, still working. I was spun off a year and a half ago. I now work for Kindrel. You're probably all share owners and hold on to them. Hopefully they're not going to drop any further. We just had our earnings review full year today. We lost a mere 1.4 billion on on a revenue of 17. So it's just woo. And so before the spin, I'd ended up so I was in a consumer platform space, which obviously I loved, working on retail, CPG, and the team was just shut down with no notice, and the only option was to join what sounded interesting at the time, and kind of is, but it's in what was called GTS, so infrastructure services, that I knew nothing about. I mean, we never charged. Why would we be interested in deep infrastructure? But I've been doing that job for 4 years. It's the team I work on, it's a partnership with Vodafone Telco. And it's a small all hands on deck team, officially on marketing, but do a lot of, whatever needs doing, a lot of business development related. So yeah, amazingly been doing the same thing for 4 years, but my employer has changed over the 4 years. Still live in Surrey, south of London, me and the dog. Spent a lot of time going to Denmark, where I have my old folks, and a little cottage, and need to get in the swing of, I need to pick your brains on Chile, Tony. I need to do more interesting travel again. Yeah, so that's me, doing well.
Soon to be replaced by AI, Vivian, I gather.
What was that? Oh yeah, I'm to be replaced. Yeah, absolutely.
Now you have to call on the next person, Vivian.
That's you then, Patricia.
Schoolgirl error.
I know, I'm on cup number 2 of coffee. So after Cognos, I went to the IBM side, and I worked for the distribution GM, first managed the global solutions platform and then global marketing. And then someone decided that everyone needed to come to Armonk, not New York City, Armonk, to work. And so I left, and because it's been almost 11 years now. It's a very ugly day here in San Diego, but this is where I live now. That is my neighbor, Petco Park. We're going to go see the Padres today at 1. So I've been gone from the Borg since 2017. And I mostly do, I did some consulting projects, but then that annoyed me. So now all I do is I work with Retail Wire and eTail and World Retail Congress, and I write articles for them. I interview people on webinars, just dabbling here and there, but I like it a lot. Torch, still married to the Torch. We're going to be married 25 years, which I can't believe, I know. And we have 2 kittens that we adopted when we moved here 10 years ago, who are now the most spoiled, entitled cats in America, Betty and Yaya. And we do a fair amount of travel, and my hobby is to bake. So I disperse all my baked goods to all the people in the building here. I have a distribution of people who like sweets. So that's how I'm spending my time.
You answered the one question I had, Patricia, and that is, how were you keeping your figure with all the baking you were doing? Because I kept seeing all the results of your work. I figure, my God, between the 2 of them.
Well, I have a trainer. That was one thing I did when I got done with IBM, is I have a trainer. So I go twice a week for a trainer, and it's so nice here. That was one of the reasons I couldn't deal with Philly. It was just so gray and cold, but every day you can go out and walk, and it's just a pleasure. So I try and do that. So Dan, are you going to blow our underwears off now with that redneck demo?
Yeah, might as well. No one, I don't think everybody knows that story. So when Patricia first came to, was it a Datum or Cognos? I can't
Cognos,
remember.
right after Datum.
Yeah, right after the acquisition. Well, anyhow, being the redneck that I am from South Georgia, I had come up with this kind of funny takeoff on a planning demo. And one of the things was, you're going to love this. Just watch me and I'll smash this button right here and it's going to blow your underwears off. And she just thought that was the funniest thing. And so that she and I go way back with that. But yeah, love everybody here. And so just a little bit of background. So I left IBM and I went to, I took a little bit of time off. I went to work for an analytics company that does accounts payable fraud detection, and I was running their global pre-sales team, and I was traveling, I mean, literally every week, you know, hey, can you go to Germany next week? And you get back on Sunday, hey, do you mind going to Australia the next week? And so I was literally everywhere. And they made a lot of promises that they couldn't keep. And I left them. About that time, my mother-in-law died and I was named executor of the estate. So it was, you know, sell this apartment, get rid of that, get rid of this, divide the money between all the freaking, you know, family members. And so I spent about 2 years doing that. And then Debbie got breast cancer. She went through surgery, blah, 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 doing really, really great. She's like, I'm done with this house. We moved to a condo on the ocean. You probably can't see it, but that's my went. Yeah, it's too bright. But anyhow, if I look that way, that's the ocean. Literally, I can throw a rock off my balcony and hit the water.
What ocean do you have there?
Yes, the Atlantic. I am
Okay.
I am just north of Palm Beach Island. I'm on Singer Island. We bought in a 2-bedroom, scaled down. I had to buy a shed to keep boats and duck decoys and guns and stuff like that. So me and my buddy went in and bought a lot and put a big metal building on it. We've got 4 or 5 boats in there and it's all kinds of stuff. But anyhow, we were here not too long, and Debbie's cancer came back and metastasized, and now she's been battling breast cancer or metastatic breast cancer for the last 2 years. So it's been hell. I've been the maid, the cook, the chef, the driver, and we're still, you know, she's a fighter, so we're still fighting that, and she's doing pretty good. And I'm still fishing and hunting, and then gosh, I'm bouncing all over the place. So I'd taken some time off. Gary Corrigan, I don't know if you know Gary, with Cubit Consulting. Came calling and said, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, well, kind of nothing, you know, hanging out, trading. I got big monitors over here, 4 or 5 monitors. I just trade futures and commodities and stuff like that on the side. And he said, well, hey, we're looking for somebody with supply chain experience and planning experience. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. Well, so I joined them a bit. And gosh, my anniversary was like 2 days ago, 4 years. I can't believe it. 4 years of Cubit. I don't travel. I sit here and take calls and write articles and do coffee breaks and stuff like that. So that's kind of hey, Scott.
Hey,
Hey,
Scott.
Scott.
Thank you, man. Glad you can make it. Good to see your smiling face. We've kind of gone around the horn. You just happened to join right at the end of mine, and I was finishing up, and I'm gonna tap you since you're the newest guy here. So we're given about, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes each person, just kind of say, hey, what happened after you left the industry marketing team, and where are you going, and where are you now, and a quick update on Scott Jennings. Go ahead. So you got the floor.
Wow, I did not anticipate this. Thought I might ease into it. Good to see everyone, first of all.
Good to see you too.
It's been a long time, although I follow you all on LinkedIn, so I feel like I'm still sort of connected. But yeah, I'm trying to think. It's a long time ago. When I left IBM, I went over to Click, and I did a lot of the retail consumer products supply chain stuff. And it was an interesting corollary between the two, because what Cognos was always good at is building the bridge between operations and finance. And what Click was very good at was all things supply chain and all things Salesforce. And so it was a little bit the same job of trying to reorient around where their customer base typically is implemented and where they're most commonly found. The CMO at the time, he said, you know, we have 50,000 customers. Every region was doing their own marketing campaigns, and basically said that we're doing random acts of marketing by region. And so what they ended up doing was trying to figure out, okay, what are we actually good at? And that's where we ended up building our go-to-market around, is primarily sales performance management, supply chain management. And so I rode that for a long time until Thoma Bravo bought them. And it was my first experience with private equity, and I hope it's my last. They, just the constant layoffs, the cost cutting, and they eventually just dissolved the industry team and made them, I think, CS managers, which kind of devalued the whole thing. But I knew it was coming, and it was one of those things where I was like, and right around then, just personally, I got married. I have 2 kids. I actually have another kid on the way.
Wow.
On the way.
Congratulations.
Woo.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So many kids.
Never thought I would hear that from you, man.
I know. Yeah, so I'm in like kid jail for the next, I don't know, couple decades. So I actually went from the BI world. I decided I wanted to get out of that, and I went to a HR tech platform for background screening. And so in my interview, they were building an industry team. This is a company that invented the API first background check, which is embedded in Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, all the marketplaces. And they wanted to move up market and go after retail, hospitality, staffing, and more of a true enterprise motion. And it was my first intro to startups. It was a lot of fun, but we ended up chasing a bunch of companies, winning a bunch of business at Compass Group, at Aramark, at Amazon, and a variety of other companies. We ended up having to give a lot of the business back because the requirements were too complex, upmarket enterprise for that company. And they sort of dissolved the industry team. I hung around for a little bit longer, but it was an interesting play because it was a data platform. Background screening is all about collecting data on folks, and we thought we could build solutions for single view of the candidate and then sell them to different technology systems. In theory, that was true. In practice, it wasn't, because of all the compliance laws. So that didn't really work out too well. But it was an interesting ride. Really got to know HR tech. And then I jumped to Twilio, which was fascinating. Most fascinating technology company I've ever worked at, but it was a disaster. They bought too many companies. They hired too many people. Their service now was it was literally like a choose your own adventure. If you had an IT ticket, and everything led to ServiceNow. In February, if you had industry in your title, basically any of our rules, they let you go. The whole thing. They got rid of something like 20% of the company, everybody in industry. And so subsequently, I got lucky, and Informatica was hiring for a retail and a CPG industry leader. And so I jumped on that, and I started there about 6 weeks ago, and in between calls now. So good to see everyone. That's the Scott Jennings update.
Oh, good to hear.
And Scott, you're probably cursing my name all this time because I'm the one that said, "Hey man, you should come over and join the industry marketing team at Cognos."
Worked out pretty well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Who's next?
You get to pick, Scott.
I don't know who's gone yet.
Yeah.
Dan has me, Vivian,
Tony. and Craig.
Tony, and Craig.
Raise your hands if you haven't gone yet.
Oh, it's definitely got to be Colin Shearer then. I always tell people, Colin, you're like the Dos Equis guy, like the most interesting man in the world.
What?
So interesting.
I'll take your word, but well, let's see what I can cram into 3 minutes then. So I'm speaking to you from Scotland. So in 2015, realized a long-standing ambition to move home, having been down in the south of England for about 30 years. And we'd always planned to come back up here. I don't think my daughters believed me, but when the younger one finished school, at least we left my forwarding address and moved back up here. So sitting on the shores of the North Sea, very pleasant, and an hour away from the nearest airport, which still makes it accessible for any requirement to travel. I was still working for IBM at that time. A year later, I left, and I thought I was going to try being retired, or at least semi-retired. And if I got any interesting, little bits of consulting here and there, I might take that on. And that didn't last, because various people reached out, and I ended up being pulled into 2 startups, which was great to be back in startup environments. And those 2, I'm still working about 2/3 of my time with them. One of them is a bunch of crazy Finns who Ken and Colin will both know. Ken, do you remember the guys at Kesko in Helsinki?
yeah, wow.
I worked with those people too.
Patricia, there you go. Well, in 2013, that core team who did the wonderful stuff in assortment optimization spun off their own company, Houston Analytics.
Yeah.
And I'm now
Oh,
their chief
yeah.
strategy officer as a part-time. I spend about a third of my time with them. And they're doing an awful lot of very interesting stuff still in retail. For historical reasons, some interesting IoT type stuff, predictive maintenance and so on for the likes of BHP and Kona. And then the other one is local, or as near local as I can get up here. It was a startup in Aberdeen applying AI to the oil and gas industry and really trying to work out how to keep oil rigs producing oil and not breaking and so on. And just before the pandemic, that company, OPEX, we'd sort of pivoted and we were using the same techniques looking at the streaming data from the oil rigs, but instead of trying to say, how do you get more oil out of them? We were trying to say, how do you optimize your CO2 emissions? And how do you make it as green as possible? And that has worked out pretty well. And about a year and a half ago, we got acquired by ERM, we're the biggest pure play environmental consultancy in the world.
Fantastic.
And so I'm now working for a big company again on that side of 7,500 people. Doesn't feel too IBM-ish yet at the moment. but I hadn't planned to be working 2/3 of my time, but that's what I'm doing between these two companies. The rest of it, trying to just enjoy being up here. I take lots of photos. And in fact, I'm just back this afternoon from a committee meeting of the local heritage society. So lots of local history up here. So I'm as likely to be standing up talking about, old Scottish history these days as I am about predictive analytics. So, but still like standing up on my hind legs and talking at people. That's a habit that's hard to break. But it's great to be in touch with you all again and seeing all of you and catching up. It's so good to hear what you're doing. And I'm going to use that as my point as the next person, because Ken, I haven't seen you for ages. And I did actually try and get in touch with you a couple of years ago and didn't manage, but I couldn't find an address for you. But I'm delighted to see you. So I'm going to say it's over to you. Take it away, Ken.
Thanks, Colin. By the way, thanks for giving me a shout out when they wanted you to do a book on SPSS, and you said, well, maybe you should talk to Ken. So we finally finished it.
Hey, great.
Just a cookbook, But yeah, so it's great to see everybody. I just caught up with Colin Linsky on Facebook a few weeks ago, and he mentioned this meeting. I thought, well, this could be interesting, and it is. Yeah, a few names from the past. So, of course, I left IBM in 2016. I had some miles under my belt by then, probably 69 or something. I'd promised I'd retire by 70, and I made it, but it was close. So since then, I've been doing some books, and I still do some of my academic research at Northwestern. I have political science background, like Norman Nye and some of the other SPSS founders and things like that. So basically, we have 3 daughters, and we have 3 grandsons who live about a 5-minute walk away. So we see them, I guess, every day. They're little kids, 4 months, 3 and 2, so high maintenance. But then, Colin, my youngest daughter, is an archaeologist out in New Mexico. Lives just outside Roswell. Mostly, when they build a new pipeline or a wind farm or something, they go out and make sure that the burial sites from the people who used to live there, well, they abandoned that area a little over 1,000 years ago, the people who lived there. So no relatives around, so to speak, but most of that part of New Mexico is pretty empty. You wouldn't want to have a farm there, let's put it that way. A rock garden could work pretty well. So we've had a pretty interesting run, but I still stay pretty much up on mostly statistical methods. I'm kind of more into the Bayesian stuff these days. So there's a lot of good, even from podcasts and books and stuff like that, but still have a passion for analytics, but I don't get my hands dirty too much. Maybe in some political campaigns, but here in the U.S., at least, the political campaigns turn pretty ugly pretty quick. But we live in a blue state here in Chicago, so it doesn't affect us too much. But crime and corruption, I guess, are our main hot buttons here. So good seeing everybody, though. It's a pretty exciting crew.
And
Maybe
who
I'll
are
pass it
you
on to-
passing the mic to?
I was going to ask for Colin, the other Colin.
Dr. Linsky?
No, Colin too, as he used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm still here in Bath, that's now 23 years. So we've not moved. We haven't made any big moves to retire or anything like that yet. Kate and I are still working away. 2018, I had reached the end of the road with IBM. I was going to go nuts or I was going to leave. And thankfully, a lifeline was thrown to me by, some of you might remember, Marcus Gretschmann, right, from the SPSS days and some of the industry days. So he threw a lifeline to me from Salesforce, and a couple of months later joined them. So just coming up to my 5-year anniversary in a couple of days. A real rocket ride, actually. Just loved it. Really, really great place to work. It's changed a lot over the 5 years. It's now a bit more IBM-ish. That doesn't mean to say that I feel the same about it as I did about IBM. So it's still a great place to work. I've stayed in analytics and has specialized in the use of analytics within Salesforce. So on the Click side of things, Scott, we bump into your ex-colleagues quite a lot still. But we're predominantly looking at both the BI side of things, the data management side of things, but also a little bit of machine learning, but within the context of Salesforce to make it a little bit smarter and a little bit more, I hasten to use the word intelligent. They keep using the word AI. I keep avoiding it like the plague. It's just machine learning in the background. Out of interest, still using Modeler, SPSS Modeler, to generate hundreds and thousands and millions of records of data, which is great fun. But it's pretty cool stuff, I have to say, and it's been brilliant to get to learn the deployment side of things. So like all of us, we've all been on the analytics side. It's been really good to have that last mile where you're looking at getting analytics in front of people and helping them to sort of do things based off what they see. So rather than just presenting it and hoping they do things with it, integrating it back into their operational systems. So getting insights and then turning that into some kind of action is great fun. It really has been good to see the other side of it. And it's inescapable because it's all part of one platform. So it's above and beyond just on the analytics side of things. But still, I'm just being reminded by listening to you all, we have lots of the same conversations, and I could probably, with half an hour's work, use some of my old decks and presentations that we do today. So I think we're still trying to kill the same thing that we were always trying to kill in the olden days. But I think it's a perennial problem, but it's also a perennial need that it's changing. And I think the way, so Colin particularly, and the rest of you will be seeing how the industry is changing and always adapting its needs for the insights and those kind of things. I think we're always going to have jobs. We're always going to be busy. We're always going to be the kind of people that are in there making sure that what we do is going to be of some kind of use. So it's nice to be part of that environment, which is quite tight, and you can take that into lots of different industries. Mine's financial services. God knows how I ended them with that. It's kind of given to me a bit, but quite tight use of analytics. Say again.
The dark side.
The dark side. It's really interesting, actually. Really, really interesting. I miss the retail side of things, but there's a lot of juicy stuff in the financial services, a lot of awfully juicy stuff. And they do get into some pretty hair-raising areas as well in terms of legal stuff and what people are trying to do. So it's thoughtful analytics as well. So I think this whole AI side of things will never be finished because someone always wants something more, something extra about the analytics space. Personal-wise, as I said, we're still here 23 years later in Bath. Kids are grown up now. So Lizzie's now a full-time teacher. She's in her first year, just coming to the end of it, of special education needs. She qualified last year. She's amazing, just really taken to it and excelling at it in a way that we never thought that she would do. She got a law degree, she got a first in a law degree, and then just said, no, I want to teach. So took a 90-degree turn, went off and did her teaching degree, and then has got this job, and she's just loving it. Lotsie's at uni. She's now in her second year. She took a year out. She hated that year because it was in the middle of COVID. So she felt like she was robbed. She was robbed for her A-levels as well because she calls them her fake exams. So she didn't really get a chance to do them properly. And then the university has been sort of troubled as well because of COVID and then the fallout from that. So she's not having the best of times in terms of academic side of things, but loving being up there, loving to be away from home, and Yeah, she's doing well. Kate's now chair of a charity. She's doing lots of consultancy inside social care, so mental health issues, learning disabilities, big specialism in autism as well. So it's quite a busy household. Lots of conversations that you can't really predict where they're going to go. Sometimes it's an education every day. So it's busy, but
Colin,
fun.
I'm going to cut you off. We got like 3 minutes left. I want to make sure Rob has some time here. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Yep. Go ahead, Rob. You got like 3 or 4 minutes. Sorry. They cut me off
yeah,
in
no
40
worries.
minutes on this thing. So
Oh, 40.
no,
Okay.
so I retired in 2016 from IBM. Well, I left IBM in 2016, went to Tableau, retired from there in 2019. And I, as Patricia said, I read books. I watch Buster. I mean, I'm on a Man Booker Prize jag right now, so I'm reading all these interesting books. I walk Buster 5-6 miles a day, chase mice around the kitchen with cats. We're going to sell the house in DC in 2 years. We're going to split our time between our house in the Shenandoah Valley and a cottage we have on the Straits of Mackinac, Mackinac Island,
Oh my
Oh,
that
God.
area.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we can see the island from the cottage. So so we're gonna spend some time up there, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I don't do much. I'm writing a book, so I'm not going to tell you what it's about. You have to wait till it comes out, but it'll be an interesting memoir, hopefully. So
So did the bike store get sold, and is
We
that
shut the
ancient
bike-
history?
we shut the bike store down. 8 years of losing money. It's
Well-
like, so, but that's okay. I did start a nonprofit in the middle of COVID to house members of the LGBTQ plus community who are homeless and suffering from drug addiction. Being in the real estate business is tough. I know my limitations. I'm a strategy guy, so I created the whole framework for the nonprofit. Somebody else is running it now, which is fine. So we'll see how that turns out. But I'm taking it easy. I got out of government and education. I just rant about politics, and that's about it on both sides. And I'm enjoying stuff. It's good.
That's awesome.
Lovely to hear from everyone.
Yeah.
Well, likewise, we must do this more often, as they say.
Yeah.
So I
Thank you
hear from Sue well, Sue, so sometimes I hear from her, sometimes I don't. But last I heard Sophia was in her second year of college.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and Sue took a gig a number of years ago after some startups and time off and so forth at Harvard. And she was working in their alumni relations office, and they brought her in as kind of fresh breath to see how they could improve their alumni relations, especially relative to giving from alumni. Apparently Harvard alumni don't give too much, and they were trying to figure out how to increase like that, like they don't have enough cash on
Well, that
hand.
was a wide open invitation for some comments, but
Yeah.
I'll hold
At any
back.
rate, that's what she's doing. She had an eye for talent.
Yes, indeed.
well,
Well,
hey,
if we're going to be kicked out, Dan, give our
Yeah.
best to Debbie.
thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. I recorded this, so I'll clean it up and post it probably, I don't know, somewhere, YouTube or something like that with a private link. And I'll send everybody a link if you want to go back and relive time or catch up with. Scott came in late, so maybe he wants to go back and see the first 2 or 3 people, what they were doing. But hey, it's been fantastic. We
It's
can
been
certainly
really
do this.
lovely.
We can certainly